Meeting to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231. Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Township of Franklin has been provided.
I am.
Mr. Betterbid, Ms. Graham,
Here.
Mr. Johnson, Mr. McCracken.
Here.
Mr. Rich asked to be excused this evening. Mr. Shepherd.
Here.
Mr. Caldwell.
Here.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Here.
Mr. Reese.
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell.
Here.
Chairman Thomas.
Here. Let's see, we have on the final agenda, no minutes, resolutions. Under discussion, a voucher for Mr. Bradshaw for $865, October retainer. Is there a motion to approve?
I move the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I see on the final agenda, only 1340 Hamilton Street's listed. Do I need to read New Jersey Tabernacle?
No, they were carried from the last meeting to a date
And
certain.
Donald Snyder?
No, they were
Okay.
carried to a date certain also.
All right, we go right to the hearing agenda. 1340 Hamilton Street, docket ZBA 130003. Use variance in which the applicant's proposing to construct a one-story, 10,075 square foot retail building and a 4,000 square foot one-story mini-mart with 8 gas pumps under a canopy at 1340 Hamilton Street, Somerset, Block 90, lots 1 and 2 in the M2 zone. Okay, go ahead.
You need to hold.
Use the mic, Ken.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, board's professional staff, and public. My name is Kenneth Pape. I am an attorney with the firm of Heilbrunn Pape, and I have the privilege and the responsibility of representing your applicant, 1340 Hamilton Street, LLC. This application, this is the third time that I have had the opportunity to present this property to the board. 7 years ago, we came before the board, and our client had only purchased one lot, the lot that was at the corner. And we presented to the board a request for a use variance to use property that is located in the manufacturing zone. And the request was that we be permitted to install retail facilities, including a bank with drive-through. This board, after hearing the application, granted the relief and did something a little unusual. You asked the applicant to go out and buy more land and to return to the board with an expanded site. You pointed out to us that the residence that was next door was for sale, and you pointed out that the property was in bad repair. And my client went out and did, in fact, buy that property. And shortly after, we came back with a revised application for the larger site, and we asked for similar relief. And ultimately, you were, after hearing the application, granted a 20,000 square foot retail facility that included a drive-through, a bank with drive-through. And our clients have had that approval now for more than 6 years and have actively marketed the property with that 20,000 square foot retail and freestanding bank with drive-through. And there were no takers. There was just about zero interest in the traditional retail. So we have revisited the needs of the community, and we have revisited the property, and tonight we present to you a revision. And the revision is, it still is retail. It's, the building is smaller. The freestanding bank has been removed. There is now a total of approximately 14,000 square foot of retail building, 4,000 square feet of which is designated to be a mini-mart. And where the bank had been located is now a proposal to have a couple of islands of pumps under canopies. Before we go to the witnesses, there are 3 professional witnesses, and before we go to them, I wanted to share with you what we recalled going through transcripts. What we recalled is this board's focus on landscaping. And you may recall that we actually brought Sam Malillo in. Sam Malillo was a very, he's now retired, but a very noted landscape architect. And we had him do the landscape architecture.
The Woodwinds guy?
Yes, yeah. He did, he had done the Jersey City waterfront, he had done south in Manhattan, I was forgetting the name of the end of the park by Wall Street. He did-
Battery Park?
No, Southport, South Street, Seaport. Seaport. He had done Long Branch. And so what we did is we preserved his landscape plan. There was also, we had a lot of discussion about signage, and the sign requirements were monument-style signs, and you wanted high-texture architecture. We kept the signs exactly the same. The landscaping discussion, I don't know if you recall, but I do, because we came a couple of times, each time thinking we had it right, and each time learning that the architecture that we envisioned wasn't just what the board was looking for. And finally, we did strike an architecture, and we preserved that architectural treatment. So you'll hear from all of the witnesses that the landscaping and the decorative lighting and the monument-style decorative signs and the architectural elements all remain the same. You'll hear that this is a less intense development than the last one. It's less impervious coverage. And there's also one significant change, and that change is the county has already installed improvements at the intersection of Hamilton and Veronica. And we cooperated, we participated in giving land to them in advance of the approvals, and that improvement's in place. You're going to hear that when we went back to work with the county, they asked if they could have additional land, and they asked if we would widen the road all the way to the very end of our property. And John Ray, who is the traffic engineer, who met with the county officials, will present that change. It's a very significant change. We think it's one that enhances not only the functioning of the site, but the safety in the area. So I'm looking for John Ray. John Ray is my traffic engineer, and he's not here, but he's second. So, Mr. Chair, I'm ready to begin. The first witness is Andrew French. He's a professional engineer responsible for the plans that are before you. The second is John Ray, who is a traffic engineer. And the third is Allison Coffin, a professional planner. We are here this evening asking you to consider use variance. We developed the plans considerably. They're not fully engineered as a site plan. They are substantially engineered to be responsive to primarily to Mr. Hawk's request for additional information. But we're asking this evening for use variance, and if you approve this, we'll gladly return with the site plan and work out all the details. So if we could have Mr. French sworn in.
I would try that one if you can, because
I could stand it.
you don't have to stand, it comes off.
Yeah.
Okay, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your name is Andrew French?
Yes, correct.
Spelled like you'd expect?
Yes.
And you're a professional engineer?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Mr. Andrew French, would you take a few moments to share with all of us your professional and educational background?
Yes, certainly. I am a professional engineer licensed in the state of New Jersey. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from NJIT. I've been practicing engineering for the last 15 years and provided testimony in front of various boards throughout the state.
Okay, we'll accept those credentials.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. French, I'm going to ask if you could begin by introducing your exhibits so that they can be properly labeled.
Certainly. This first exhibit is an aerial photograph of the existing conditions of the project site as well as the surrounding property.
Mr. Bradshaw, A1?
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start with A1 as I'm going to call it the regional aerial. And,
Go through each of the boards.
yeah, let's go through them and have them labeled before.
The second exhibit is an aerial photograph, but then with the site plan overlaid on the existing conditions.
Okay.
A2?
Yep.
This exhibit is a circulation plan. It's basically the use variance plan that was submitted to the board, with the one exception is the access, internal access driveways are highlighted in gray.
All right, A3, circulation plan.
And the last exhibit is a color rendering of the landscape plan.
Okay, that'll be A4.
Mr. French, while you're up there, we have two exhibits that are colored renderings of materials that are part of your architectural package. I'm going to ask if you could just introduce those exhibits for labeling purposes. The top one is the front elevation and the floor plan. The front elevation has been colorized.
Okay.
Could we mark that A5?
Yes.
Okay. Me?
And the last exhibit that we have is the colored canopy and colored sign details. If you could mark that A6. I'm going to ask if you could begin the presentation with A1, indicating where the property is located in the township, and give us a general description of the community in which it is located and the current conditions of the site.
Certainly. The property is located at the intersection of Veronica Avenue and Hamilton Street. We're located on the southeastern section of that intersection. The part of the town is on south of Hamilton Street is mostly an industrial, commercial area that surrounds the project site. Currently, the site consists of 2 lots with 2 existing residential dwellings, 1 on each lot.
If you could, I think that mine is making the noise. If you could then share with the board a general description of the proposed development plan. Proposed development plan.
Maybe easier just flip to the A2 board then. The proposed development plan is for retail and a mini mart, which is a total building of 14,075 square feet. It's located to the rear of the site, and there will be a proposed gas pump underneath the canopy, as well as there's approximately 70 parking spaces that we're proposing. And the ordinance requires 70 for our particular use.
In other words, it requires 70 if you were in a zone where that was permitted.
Yes, it's based on this particular use and parking requirements, 70 would be required, and yes.
Because
70 is
the
proposed.
way I read this, you're looking for a variance with regard to parking. So it must be that this is not consistent with the manufacturing 2 zone?
Mr. Shepherd, over the past lots of months, we have met with your professionals a number of times, and it is my understanding that the most recent review, that we actually were asked to take 19 parking stalls out of the design, so that we're now at a number that is a match for the requirements. I believe there's no variance left.
Oh, no, it's just parking lot setback, it says.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
my mistake.
We had actually inadvertently overparked and had to shave it back.
Okay.
Take us through the general narrative. We'll go through the specific site plan elements in a few moments, but just the general narrative description of what we have.
So basically, it would be the retail and the mini mart with the gas station. The circulation is a proposed driveway off of Veronica Avenue, will be full movement. Then we have another right entrance only off of Veronica Avenue that would directly lead you into where the gas pumps are located. And then on Hamilton Street, we do have another proposed driveway, which would be a right out, which would be a left and right into the property.
Now, you say that there's a gas pumps with a canopy, but you don't show the canopy in that picture, do you?
In this picture, it's a dashed line here. If I pulled up the other rendering, you could see how it matches the style of the building itself.
Okay.
But there will be a canopy, and it's going to be similar in nature to the roofing of the buildings that are proposed.
All right.
And you're also mentioning retail and mini mart. Are those all contained in the one main building? Or is there a separate mini mart
No.
building?
It's going to be continuous building, but the mini bar is going to be located on the side closest to Hamilton Street.
So all the buildings are there together?
Yes.
Yes.
Could they all come in from Hamilton Street?
There's one access on Hamilton Street, and then there would be two accesses on Veronica Avenue.
Is there an exit on Veronica Avenue?
Yes, and that's the exit. The full movement on Veronica Avenue is located the furthest from the intersection, and it aligns across the street with the driveway for the funeral home on the other side.
Okay, I thought the county's letter said they didn't want the cutouts on Veronica.
We went to the county, and we had two separate meetings with them. We reviewed with them their concerns, and together came up with the idea that the best design was what you see, and the two elements that the county emphasized, and I'm elaborating, but Mr. Hawk's report actually confirms this. The county felt that
I don't think it's that.
It's gotta be something up here.
the county had informed us that they wanted to see a full movement driveway at the far end of the site, so that's in place. There was a full movement driveway midway, in the middle, and they determined that full movement created a conflict. But the ingress only would work very well if the applicant would voluntarily widen Veronica all the way to the end of the property. So we, working with them, recognized that if we created, it's almost a dedicated lane that goes into that middle ingress only, and it was, everybody agreed that was the best answer. It was better than no driveway. It certainly was better than the unrestricted driveway, and but they actually said it was the safest driveway system that could be designed for that side of the property.
So that's different from their August 28th letter?
Yes, we met.
So we don't have a more updated letter from the county?
No, but I can tell you that everything that Mr. Pape is completely accurate, because we have met with them. What we've tried to do, it's been almost a year, we've met with them probably a dozen times, and with the county on numerous occasions, is get it to where most of staff is okay with it. So that letter does not apply. What they have here is what the county.
Could be someone's cell phone too close to the mic.
In Mr. Hawk's last report that came out last week, at the very end, he indicates that there's a harmony and there's an agreement with town, county, and applicant on that driveway design.
It would have been helpful to have a current and updated county letter.
We asked them for it. We expected, but we did ask them for it after the last meeting, so. If I might.
Okay.
Let's, back to the general circulation of the site. Let's just start there. So in your general narrative description, if you could describe the general circulation of the site.
Certainly. Again, on Veronica, there's a full movement, two-way access driveway that's located furthest from the intersection as we could make it, that aligns with the driveway across the street at the funeral home. So they line up so that the movements can be safely occurred as they exit and leave. As you come into the site, it leads you in off of Veronica to the front parking along the front of the retail stores, but you also have two-way access that leads you to the rear of the site, which has a one-way access that leads you back out to Hamilton Street. This allows the delivery vehicles and the garbage trucks to come in and maneuver behind the building and then easily access back out to Hamilton Street. There's also on Veronica, as part of the widening of full width of Veronica Avenue, is where we have halfway between the end of our property and intersection is a right turn entrance only to come into the property, which leads you directly to the gas pumps islands itself. And again, that will be circulation around the front. There's two-way around the parking that's in the front of the store as well as the gas pumps. And then on Hamilton Street, we have a right in, and left in from Hamilton Street, as well as a right exit only on Hamilton Street.
When Mr. Ray joins us, I'm going to ask that he go through a lot of the details of the circulation on site, including trash removal, emergency vehicle movement, the fuel delivery vehicle, and how all of the driveways would work and all of the on-site cartways would work. If you could generally describe the landscaping, we'll go through the specifics in a moment, but just generally, we had asked, in fact, we directed that your firm, even though it had recognized landscape architects, was to use Sam Malillo's plan. And in fact, is that the plan that you present, is that, does this contain Mr. Malillo's design?
Yes, it contains his design where we used the same plantings, same type of species, shrubs, trees, and so forth on the plan. The one difference is, though, that he was saving existing trees along the frontage, where we're providing new trees along that same frontage of Hamilton Street and Veronica Avenue. But we're keeping the same intent of his design with the shrubs, the ornamental grasses, the trees, the ornamental trees, as well as the flowers around the signs and along the front of the property.
Why are you putting new trees instead of,
Mostly because the road widening that took place
Okay.
by the county pushed into our property, and that which would have been worth saving is part of
Okay.
what's gone.
got it?
What about the other approval went to great trouble to make sure that the houses across the street would be shielded from headlights? Is this, you're saying this is the same landscaping
Better.
plan, the same effect is going to be accomplished?
Yes, what happens is, too, we have along the whole edge of our property evergreen shrubs, but one of the differences on this application, the prior application had head-on parking facing Hamilton Street as well as Veronica. We've removed that head-on parking that's facing out the streets, and now this is just landscape area next to the access driveway. So the benefit of this plan has the landscaping along the front, but we eliminated that head-on parking that faced out to the road.
So there were, I said that we had a 20,000 square foot retail building and a 3,200 square foot bank, or 23,000 square feet of retail, and we had almost 100 parking spaces. Here, there's 14,000 square feet of retail and 70 parking spaces. It gave considerable additional room for landscaping, and all of the places where parking was taken out is landscape.
If I can make a suggestion that at the end of the meeting, if the board is inclined to approve the application, they will be coming back for site plan, at which point, I have reviewed the landscaping plan generally, but I'll review the plan in more detail And you could have a condition of the approval that it has to meet the same level of screening and the same amount of landscaping that you had approved previously. And I can do that more detailed review during site plan.
I'm going to ask if, together, if we could go through 5 textbook elements of a site plan. The first would be to describe to the board grading and drainage. When this application was presented to the board the last time, grading and drainage was conceptual. It had never been finalized. The applicant had a burden of finalizing the stormwater design. We began with the stormwater design. Mr. French's firm is known for soil studies and stormwater design. So if you could begin by describing how you intend to grade and drain the property, and a short description of your stormwater collection system.
Absolutely. The first step in the process was go out and do soil information witnessed by the Township Engineer's Office to determine where the soil conditions were, as well as where a seasonal high water table would be located, so that we could have a basis for our design of our system. Once that was undertaken, we understood the constraints of the site and what needed to be done, so we devised a plan so we could have underground detention systems and an underground infiltration system. What happens is in stormwater management, there's 3 criteria you have to meet. One is detaining the water on your site and slowly releasing it. The next is groundwater recharge. The same amount of water that hits the site today and goes into the ground, you have to maintain that condition. And then the third is a water quality element where you have to cleanse the runoff before it's released downstream. So in doing those 3 requirements, parameters, the one is an underground detention system is located between the retail store and the landscaping area along Veronica Avenue. And we have various inlet structures that collect that runoff and put it into the underground system and hold it back and detain it through an outlet structure to slowly release it out. Then when it goes out, there's actually a storm filter, water quality device that the first flush of the water will go through and be cleansed prior to it being discharged downstream. And the intent, we're going to tie into the existing storm sewer system on Veronica Avenue.
And it's not fully designed, but it's sufficiently designed for Mr. Hawk in his last report to indicate that he was satisfied with the design, subject to it being fully engineered at a site plan. If I might.
Right.
Second important element of a site plan is the circulation plan. And I'm going to ask if you could, you've described it briefly, but if you could place the circulation board in front of the board members, and just identify on that plan the general circulation, where it's one-way, where it's two-way, and where it has been designed to handle the large truck movements throughout the site.
Right, absolutely. In gray, you can see on this is Exhibit A3, we've highlighted the access driveways surrounding the property. So again, off of Veronica Avenue, it's two-way, and it comes in following north to south on the property here, as well as then east to west, we have two-way up in front of the building and one-way to the rear of the buildings, which heads towards Hamilton Street. This allows full circulation movements around the property, which easy access in and out of the site, as well as to the parking spaces.
Part of that circulation plan, in fact, an important part that makes it work, are the improvements to Veronica. And I'm going to ask, as you describe the new improvements to Veronica that lead up to the central driveway, Mr. Bradshaw, with your permission, I have a blow-up of just that portion of the plan to hand out to the board members. Maybe we'll mark one as A7 and deliver that to you, and then with your permission, I'll give one to each board member.
Okay.
This is the emphasis on the Veronica Road improvements. If you would.
Just referring to A4, but it's a blow-up of the area shown where the driveways come in off of Veronica Avenue. What happens is when the county did the improvements at the intersection, they created a designated right-hand turn lane on Veronica so you can access onto Hamilton Street. What they did, though, they constructed about 150 feet from the intersection back is where the lane ended, and it transitioned back into one lane. So what we're proposing to do, as we worked out with the Somerset County, is to extend that along the whole frontage of the property back, so we have 2 lanes there along Veronica to allow additional queuing room at the intersection, but also, another important feature is that it allows the movement coming in the right entrance into our facility along that same area on Veronica, the easy access in.
Will left turns be allowed on to Hamilton from your property?
Not exiting, no, we're proposing right turns out on Hamilton only.
If someone wanted to go in the opposite direction, they would use the Veronica driveway and use the traffic signal. And the geometry is consistent with the county's direction. It's tight geometry.
I'm sorry, is there an exit off of Veronica? Am I missing something?
Yes. Located at the
I
furthest
thought-
from the
oh, okay,
intersection
yeah,
would be the
okay.
exit.
Fine.
So they would make a right-hand turn there and then come up to the traffic
Okay.
signal and make the left.
If I recall correctly, originally, you had a two-way where you now have the right in only. Is
Here.
that correct? And then
Right,
based on
halfway
your-
between, yes.
Based on your conversations with the county basically said you can't have a two-way there. They don't want left turns out, yet it can only be a right turn in only at
At
that
the end of the
location.
day, they concluded right turn in was the best, it was better than any other design.
Okay, I think,
Right.
So it's
correct.
right turn in and right turn out?
No, just right turn in, right there in the middle. And then you use the other exits in the corners of the property to exit. 3 ways to get in, 2 ways to leave.
But when you leave on Hamilton Street, you're leaving only to the right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And there's traffic signals available for going to the left. So those are the 3 textbook elements of a site plan: grading, drainage, circulation, and the, when I ask you if you could now take us on to landscaping and lighting. Now, the landscaping that we had indicated was Mr. Malillo's. You've answered some specific questions about improvements to the perimeter. But if you could just talk to the density and the evergreen elements of that landscaping. And I'm going to also ask if you would focus on the landscape treatment of the corner. And as you do that, I'm going to deliver the blow-up of a portion of the plan marked A8
Before
for
he
each board member.
addresses that issue, I had a quick follow-up on the circulation that you were talking about before we leave it. Is this facility going to sell diesel fuel for trucks? And if so, does this circulation plan allow for those size vehicles?
Mr. Chairman, the answer is diesel would be offered for sale. However, the high-speed pump, the 2-inch nozzle, the trucks that are fueled, if you went to a truck stop, they don't use the same diesel, it's the same fuel, but the 1-inch nozzle that goes into a car that delivers fuel at a slow rate would take an hour to fill a truck. The truck has the 2-inch high-speed nozzle. We have no 2-inch high-speed nozzles, and as you'll hear, Mr. Brusilowski has 20 or more of these facilities in New Jersey, and the signage that is placed on is designed to tell the trucker that these facilities are not designed for the heavy truck.
So they're aware of it before they pull in and discover it?
And they may try once, but they don't have the hour that it takes to sit there and get.
Okay, you can move on with the next.
Okay.
So I've just handed out a portion of the landscape blow-up. I'm going to ask if you could talk about the details and intensity and evergreen elements, and if you could focus on the corner treatment.
Certainly. The main evergreen element along the front is the evergreen shrubs that we're proposing all along the front curb line that abuts against where the access drive is internally. And that's both along Veronica Avenue as well as Hamilton Street. Beyond that, it's going to be, the green space is going to be combination of deciduous trees, sugar maples, as well as ornamental trees, red buds, as well as ground cover consisting of ornamental grasses and perennial flowering along both sides of Veronica Avenue's buffering as well as Hamilton Street's landscaping. At the main intersection, we're following the same landscaping that was previously presented around the monument sign is going to be the ground cover with the perennial flowers to really enhance the monument sign at the intersection corner.
At this time, I think it'd be a good idea to just kind of point out the rendered element of the monument sign that's on the architect's plans. If you could just briefly describe it for the record.
Yeah, this is on Exhibit A6. It was also part of on the construction details as part of the use variance set, but it's sitting here rendered to match the style of what the buildings are going to be, where the monument sign has two decorative brick columns on either side, as well as a base that's going to be compatible with the architectural of the building. And this sign was the same style and size that was previously approved by the board as the other applications.
And it's shown, that would be incorporated into the corner, the highlighted corner of your colored rendered site plan.
Yes, correct. And that's the one going to be proposed at the intersection.
Lighting, if you could just talk to us about lighting.
Lighting in general, what we're proposing is metal halide fixtures that are cut-off technology, meaning that they'll produce the illumination downward on the site. They'll also have house-side shields to prevent additional spillage off the property. Near the building itself, we're proposing decorative fixtures to enhance the architectural of the building itself. There'll be lower type fixtures, but a more style that goes with the architecture, as well as some of the building mounted fixtures on the building blend in with the architectural design. To the rear of the site, we have 16-foot high poles. Again, there'll be the cutoff type fixtures, so it directs the illumination down with house side shields to cut off the spillage. Under the canopy of the gas pumps, that's where there'll be the LED lighting that's below the canopy to light up and safely have that area for filling the vehicles.
What is the expected operation time for this gas station when it opens? What time will it close and lights go off?
Our clients have successfully operated with hours that were 24/7, that hours that start at 5 a.m., hours that start at 6, working with the board to get a clear vision of the community's needs.
Except this is you're right near a residential area,
Yeah.
across the street from you?
Yeah, we recognize that, which is,
And we've had approvals on Elizabeth Avenue of shopping centers, and they had turned the lights off at 10 o'clock at night.
when we were with you the last time, on the last, we had a 6 a.m. turn on, and we had, if I remember correctly, 11 turn off.
Well, actually, what it was that the hours of operation, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. with lights turned off at 11 p.m., except security lighting. That was the condition.
Those hours would work for the general retail building. We would want to expand the hours. We'd have to work that out with you as we finalize the site plan, but we'd want to expand the hours for the service station.
I can tell you right now that I can tell you right now that in view of where that building is located in terms of having residences across the street, that if the motion that's presented is for a time for the gas station to be operating after 10 o'clock, I'll vote not in favor of it. I think I feel very strongly that if we're going to have any kind of a filling station located on this street, that it's not going to be open late at night.
Mr. Shepherd, we were looking for guidance from the board members, kind of hoping it was a little different than that, but I've recorded it, and we'll make sure that, I'll go over it with my client. Before we conclude, we'll have a response to your statement.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
That concludes my direct examination of Mr. French. I conclude at this point because the engineering, the detailed, hard engineering that's required for site plan follows at a subsequent hearing if the use variance relief were to be granted. And at that time, the time that we spend with him would be much longer and in greater detail. I would only ask this: are you comfortable that with the site that you have to work with, that you can address all of the stormwater design elements and all of the on-site circulation elements that would ultimately be required of this applicant?
Yes, I am.
Just Just a quick question on the rendering. Are those sidewalks along both frontages?
Yes, that's correct. We're proposing new sidewalks all along Hamilton Street and Veronica Avenue.
Driveways are brick pavers so that they,
At the crosswalk area, there'll be a brick paver design as you cross the
that's what I mean, the
driveways. Yes.
crosswalk?
Yep.
The other thing, maybe staff could help me just to make a statement, so I'm clear. It's been my understanding in the development of this over the past year that there were real issues involved with the stormwater management system.
Yeah,
Well, what I've heard is
they've been worked out. The applicant has been working diligently with staff to work out those issues, and Mr. Hauk, our Assistant Township Engineer, is satisfied now that they're at a point that all the details that need to be worked out, because it's not a site plan, but they're at a point now that if the board looks favorably upon this, that they'll be able to work those out at site plan.
so in short, he's satisfied after a year and a half?
Yes.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
And just to clarify a little bit on that, it was a matter of months, frankly, that we were working with the applicant, and we were strongly recommending to the applicant that they not proceed and go before the board until they could prove to our engineer that they're heading in a direction. Basically, it's down to the details at this point. Before, they had an approach that, frankly, our engineer couldn't tell us that, yes, this plan will work. We're frankly at that stage, and as the planner, I was also saying, I don't think you're ready, before, I was saying, I don't think you're ready yet to go before the board, because if you're proposing a plan, you need to prove, part of the fact that if the site is particularly suitable, you need to prove that the site plan could fit on this site, considering the stormwater drainage needs. And again, we've been given direction from our engineer that they have basically proven that with the details to be worked out. And I'd say the same thing with they are asking for a slight impervious surface variance, which I think the same applies. I think they need to prove that basically they have a scheme that is going to work. And the direction we've received from engineering is that, yes, they do have a scheme that will work.
Okay, we know, as a board, we know that you discourage applicants from moving forward if you don't feel they're ready, just that sometimes applicants do as applicants want to do, so.
That is true. In this case, the applicant took our suggestion to come at the right time.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to be real blunt. We just stopped in our tracks last spring, sat down with your staff, made the list, and went through them one by one until we said, are we ready? I mean, I know that your professionals will tell you, Mr. Brusilowski although he was anxious to come forward, did not in any way ask the board to go faster until every issue was addressed. And the letter that I've referred to a number of times is the October 6th letter that was issued by Carl. It actually says, when it comes to stormwater review, his bold language, bold says, satisfied conceptual revisions to stormwater plan now appear acceptable. Detailed review will be completed upon site plan submission. So that was,
Okay.
that was fair.
Did that, the relationship between where the gasoline tanks are and the the underground detention, that got handled?
The modern fuel tanks are double-walled and are super safe, but the stormwater collection system and the fuel tanks are at opposite ends of the site.
Okay.
So clarification on the signage, and excuse me if I missed this part, but the larger sign that's on that sheet, that's the one that you said that's going to be at the corner, and
Correct.
basically that would have the tenants of the retail. So that'd be your typical kind of site identification sign.
Yes,
And then the
that's correct.
sign, the smaller sign that's to the left, this is the part I'm not sure if you went over, that's going to be at there's going to be one, each of those at the Hamilton Street and the Veronica entrance, and that's going to have the gas station prices, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, and they'll both be monument style, and they'll have the gas prices at each driveway, one on Veronica and one on Hamilton Street.
Okay.
Will they also have the gas station brand name?
Yes, it will, yes.
Okay, and how tall are those signs?
Not.
8 foot to the top of the column where the decorative column is.
That's the little signs?
Yes, that's the small sign, is 8 foot to the top.
And how about the big sign?
That is 12 foot 4 inches to the top of the decorative column. What happens is each of the signs also have a 2-foot base on the bottom of the decorative itself. So the sign area, even on the larger sign, is 82 square feet, where the ordinance allows 100 square feet.
Uh-huh.
So what this variance we're seeking is for the decorative columns and the base and everything else, the way the ordinance reads on the signage.
Yeah, okay. I have a couple more questions. The landscaping, how tall is that landscaping going to be?
When they're installed, they're about 8 to 10 foot high along the
Okay.
front.
All right. And how did we come to choose 16 pumps instead of, say, 8 pumps? I think there's going to be demand at that particular intersection for 32 cars at the same time?
Mr. Shepherd, a little bit later, I can bring Mr. Brusilowski, who is the owner of the property, and his industry is the gas station industry.
Okay.
And we talk about customers, what customers are looking for. You don't get 32 cars, you just have people having a perception of, I want to get in and I want to get out. So, it'd be nice to have 32 cars at a time.
The sign,
Not for us.
No.
the sign indicating price, that is digital.
I don't think we thought that far forward, Mr. Chairman. It could be, or it could be.
That's in the next hearing.
Well, by ordinance, the prices are allowed to be digital.
Right. Just asking.
I would say we haven't thought that far forward, and if we get to site plan, and I hope that we do, we could work that out with you, because either way works. Here's an interesting, when you have a traffic signal, there's regulations about red lights, digital red lights, and how far away they have to be from the traffic signal. So we probably are going to have to use a lot of caution about what type of lighting we put in those signs, and have to defer to the state's regulations, the DOT regulations on signage in close proximity to traffic signals. I'm gonna
Well, don't we have some sort of regulation in the color? Or it just has to be all one thing and it can't be flashing?
Well, I don't think
certainly
we have a
can't be
regulation of
flashing,
color, it can't be flashing.
Can't be flashing, I think it can't change more than once per day, and a bunch of other things. I don't believe it gets into color.
use
All
the
right,
red or-
if that's not relevant tonight, we don't need to. Go ahead.
I just had one more about the cross-section on Hamilton Street. It's not quite on the landscape plan, but out in front, that left turn they put in, is that going to get carried back so that you'll still have a left turn lane to go into the,
Into the,
Into
our
the site,
facility.
yeah?
It's my understanding that left turn lane, and then it has some striping here that would
Yeah.
accommodate the left turn movement in.
You'd be making, there's room where the striping
Yes,
is.
correct,
But
correct.
Can you have an arrow there too, or, I mean, like a,
I don't think the county would give us a dedicated arrow in. I mean, I don't think we're sufficiently intense to warrant it. In fact,
there's a taper there, right?
Yeah, there's a small taper there with striping, and then the intent is the vehicle to pull there to make the left turn in, to be out of the traveled lane.
So the two lanes that are going straight through are going to have to move over for people turning left into your drive, right?
that portion of the site is almost identical to what was on the original site design. That driveway is almost identical.
Yeah, I know, but what's changed is the left-hand turn lane.
Yes, we had the left-hand, we had worked with the county, as we were working with you, we were working with them on their improvements. So although it was a paper street improvement, the design was to match what the county was doing to Hamilton.
The county knew you were going to have a driveway there?
Yes, when we came before the county in 2006, 2007, 2008, there was a driveway there, and we were working with them, making our dedications of land So they knew that there was a driveway there. So this one's almost exactly the same as the last time.
Okay, any other questions?
I have nothing further for Mr. French.
Okay, then we'll open to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to ask questions of this witness concerning the testimony you've just heard? Okay, then we'll close and move on.
Thank you. Our second witness,
All right, thank you.
thank you very much, Mr. French. Our second witness is John Ray. Would you be so nice to stay with me, Ed?
Sure.
Mr. John Ray, who is a traffic engineer with McDonough and Ray. Mr. Ray is responsible for the traffic studies that were done, and he also spearheaded all of the discussions with the county for those Veronica Road improvements. Ask if he could be sworn, and we'll share with you his credentials.
Solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, state your name for the record.
John Ray, R-E-A.
Mr. Ray, would you take a few moments to share with us your professional and educational background?
Yes, I'm a licensed professional engineer. I'm a principal with McDonough and Ray Associates, Traffic and Transportation Engineers. We have offices in Manasquan and Westfield, New Jersey. I have a total of 39 years' experience in the traffic engineering field. I've been a licensed professional engineer for the
I think we
last
can go on.
34 years.
Thank
And
you.
all I'm doing is counting cars still, after all that.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for accepting Mr. Ray's credentials. Mr. Ray, I'm going to ask if you could share with us certain important elements of the plan. You heard Drew describe the on-site circulation. I'm going to ask if you'd spend more time talking about the on-site circulation, and in particular, share with all of us how the larger vehicles will traverse this site.
Sure. Well, I did listen to Drew French's presentation on the access, and I'll just reiterate one more time. We did meet with the county. We sat down with the county engineering staff, and basically what we worked out with the county was the fact that we would widen the additional area along Veronica Avenue that's shaded in here so that we could extend the right turn lane on Veronica Avenue, and the county would allow us to have a right turn entry into the center of the site, but not any exit movements. So again, just to reiterate what Drew just went through, there is a full access to Veronica Avenue at the southerly end of the site, right at our boundary, as far away from the intersection as we could get it. There's a right turn entry to the center of the site, which will primarily serve people coming in from Veronica, going to the fuel pumps and/or the mini-mart. And then we have an access to Hamilton Street, which is a right in, right out, left in, but no lefts out onto Hamilton Street.
If you reverse that board, there is a highlighted circulation plan
Oh.
that I've just handed out in miniature to all board members.
I think this
without-
is A3 I'm referring to.
So the beauty of the landscaping's gone, but all of the circulation elements are now quite clear.
Yes.
So we've 3 ways to get in, 2 ways to get out. We're on site. How do you move around?
Okay, well, first let me say that the site has been designed with very generous pavement areas on the site for circulation. To give you some examples, the two-way circulation aisles in front of the retail stores are 30 feet wide. Typically, you only have 24 to 25-foot wide circulation aisles for two-way traffic. Our aisles in there are 30 feet wide. The aisle behind the building that will serve a one-way circulation pattern for trucks coming back to load and unload in that area, and also for circulation for the fuel trucks, is 36 feet wide. The circulation aisle over here on the Hamilton Street side of the property is 36 feet wide. The distance between the fuel pumps, the canopy that covers the fuel pumps, and the edge of the parking stalls in front of the store is 35 feet. Typically, we're looking for a minimum of 24 to 25 feet, so we're 10 feet wider than we need to be. And the distance between the canopy and the curb over on the Veronica Avenue side where the fuel discharge ports will be is 43 feet. So when I tell you that the site has been very generously designed with very wide, expansive pavement areas for circulation, everything that's been designed in this site basically exceeds substantially the minimum requirements that we need for circulation. As far as the fuel delivery truck is concerned, as I've indicated before, the fuel drop-off positions are going to be in an area up by Veronica Avenue. You can see 3 ports on your plan. And the fuel delivery truck has 2 ways of accessing that area. Everything is dropped from the right-hand side of the fuel truck. So the truck could come in from Veronica, and as I've said, we've got plenty of circulation width on the aisles, come behind the buildings and loop around and pull into position to drop the fuel from the right-hand side of the truck. Or it could enter from Hamilton Street as well. There's enough of a turning radius here for the truck to come in, drop the fuel from the right-hand side, and then the truck would have the option of exiting back out to Veronica or circulating back through the site if it wants to head back towards New Brunswick on Hamilton Street. So the pavement areas have been very generously designed specifically to make on-site circulation as safe and efficient as we could possibly make it.
Another important element is sight distance on the roadways. Could you describe generally the conditions that you found on Veronica and Hamilton, and how would you describe sight distance?
The roads are basically level and straight, and sight distance isn't an issue. We will be providing sight triangles. I'm not certain if Drew has shown them on the plan for the use variance, but if we come back and we're fortunate enough to come back for site plan approval, we will show the required sight triangles at our driveways, but they won't be an issue because the sight distances are basically good along both Veronica and Hamilton in this area.
And you heard me in my opening remarks say that we actually took parking off the site with the 70 stalls that are shown in the 14,000 square foot of a retail building area. Are you comfortable, the fact that we meet the ordinance is already part of the record. Are you comfortable that adequate parking is on site for the anticipated needs of the retail users?
I am. Not only do we meet the municipal requirement of 70 parking spaces, but as we all know, the way that the fuel islands and the convenience mart will operate is we will have some customers that are getting fuel and have their cars underneath the canopy receiving fuel, and they will actually use those spaces as a parking space and walk into the mart to make a purchase. I can tell you from a lot of studies we've done for Mr. Brozolowski and Hess and other retailers, when you have a situation like this with about a 4,000 square foot mart and you've got the fuel pumps, roughly 50% of the people that are purchasing fuel will also make a mart purchase. It's a pretty high percentage.
One of the questions of a board member earlier was why this number of pumps? And from a traffic perspective, I know you have an opinion to share with us. From an operation perspective, we have that from Mr. Brusilowski. Would you share your perspective?
Well, I see, I thought I heard somebody say 32 fueling positions, we have 16. Yeah, so I think the 32 is inaccurate. We have 16 fueling positions. There are 4 pump islands, and you can get two cars on each side of it, so it's 16. And essentially, the reason why we tend to over-design these things a little bit is just to make sure that there's no stacking or queuing problems and that people have free and easy access to a fueling position. That's essentially why. If it were as simple as putting in 100 pump islands and we knew we could fill them, that would be one thing. But that's not how it works or operates. You want to try to spread things out, provide as many fueling positions as you can comfortably fit on the property so you don't have any queuing or stacking problems. And as I've indicated before, the 16 fueling positions under the canopy are very comfortable in terms of the site circulation because we have oversized circulation aisles all around the canopy. So there's really no issue at all with that.
Is this going to be a name brand gas station, or?
I think the operator, the client, will address that when he gets up to testify.
The reason that comes to mind is I know that there are, I go to non-name brand, less expensive gas stations, and it's real important from a queuing standpoint that you have enough.
Absolutely. Space to maneuver, to stack, to queue, and as I've indicated, this is one of the more generously designed sites that I've worked with over the years. Plenty of pavement area for circulation.
Mr. Ray, I think you very adequately described on-site and off-site conditions. and the history of how the Veronica improvements came about. I have no further questions of Mr. Wright. Mr. Chair, members of the board, he's available to you.
Anything from the board?
Oh, now, if I count the pumps on this diagram, it looks to me like if you count both sides, you have 16 pumps.
16 fueling positions, that's
16
correct.
fueling positions, that's what they say.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which seems like a lot for that kind of, well, I guess the Exxon on Franklin and Hampton may have almost as many.
They get up to 32 and 48. We've done,
I just
yeah.
want to make sure you're not building a Costco gas station.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
No.
It's,
Any other board questions?
I just wanted to do a follow-up on that left turn in.
yes.
Because I'm looking at Hamilton Street, it doesn't look like what's out there now is configured here.
It looks, and I know Drew was talking about that before, and I just eyeballed it this evening driving by. It looks like there's actually 2 travel lanes out there as you're
Right.
heading west. So any left turns would be made from the leftmost of the 2 lanes on Hamilton Street. And you'd have plenty of room to use the right lane to get around somebody. The county has taken a look at this. They've deemed it to be acceptable.
Other questions?
Just on the right turn for 53-foot trailers coming around the corner there. They don't make it when they come onto Veronica, so the cars have to back up. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying,
If-
at the intersection itself?
Yeah,
Okay,
if it's coming down Hamilton Street
okay.
and it's coming around.
And they're
onto
making a right
Veronica.
heading
Making a right.
eastbound to southbound.
Yeah, I don't know if those, the dotted lines show it going over.
Yeah,
Because
well, that's on the other,
If they
yeah.
cut the thing, it takes out the light stanchion and the box, and then that's gone a couple of times. I'm just aware that that's a problem on the stacking. You know, if the stop
understand.
line's back, you're gonna provide a whole lane on Veronica.
Yes.
And I guess getting people in, if you stack them, is it 2 full lanes going to be there? And is it going to be?
On Veronica Avenue?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
There's gonna
how's it going to be?
Separate left and right turn lane, yes.
How's it going to be the demarcations?
With pavement markings, painted on the pavement itself and with a sign on the
You're going to have
side.
an arrow into the,
Yes, and there will also be signage. I'm sure the county will require a sign on the side of Veronica Avenue indicating that it's a 2-lane approach with a separate left and a separate right turn lane. And just to get back to your previous
Yeah,
comment
right.
about the turns coming in, there is a lot, there's always been truck traffic on Veronica Avenue, and I would
there's a
assume
lot
that,
of it.
yeah, when the county designed the
Yeah.
improvements that they did however long ago it was when they improved the intersection, I know the county traffic engineer very well. I'm sure he looked at that to make sure that that movement could be made. I'd be shocked
Well,
if...
it's not made now,
didn't.
so.
Yeah.
Because I'm very aware that it's not made now. I mean,
Yeah.
people have to back their cars up so that the truck can come around. But that happens in a lot
Well,
of places.
I'll tell you what we'll do.
Yeah.
When we finalize our application to the county, we will lay the turning radius templates on the intersection one more time, and if we have to adjust the stop bar and move
Yeah,
it back,
stop bar, yeah.
we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can do that when we make our full county submission after site plan.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a couple. What is the effect of this development going to be on the traffic at the intersection of Veronica and Hamilton? It looks to me like it's going to be either a C or a B.
Yes, that's correct.
Can you give me a little more detail and tell me
Sure.
what's happening?
The intersection of Veronica and Hamilton it's a T intersection, it's signalized, it operates on a 70-second cycle. The cycle repeats itself every 70 seconds. There's a leading left turn arrow for traffic on Hamilton turning onto Veronica that comes up, I think it's about a 7-second advance. Then the balance of the time, most of the time goes to Hamilton Street, and there's a 20-second maximum on Veronica. One of the things we've recommended to the county, and again, they haven't finished their final review, but in doing our analysis, we recommended extending the maximum green time on the Veronica Avenue approach from 20 to 23 seconds so that you could reduce the queuing and more evenly balance the delays at the intersection, because even though the intersection will operate at a good C and B level of service during peak hours, the delays are a little bit unbalanced. They're a little bit heavier on Veronica Avenue than they are on Hamilton Street. So the idea was to take 3 seconds from Hamilton Street, give it to Veronica Avenue to more balance the delays at the intersection.
Now,
the county is reviewing that.
Tell me what a B level of service is.
A B level of service is something we rarely see in central New Jersey. It's very good. At a signalized intersection, it means the average delay a motorist encounters is less than 10 seconds going through the intersection. Very hard to find a signalized intersection that's operating at a B level of service. By the way, this will be a C, not a B, for the morning and afternoon peak hours. A C level of service, I think it's in my report in the appendix, is between 10 and 20 seconds worth of delay.
Okay. And when you say 10 and 20 seconds...
I think it may go up higher. I'd have to look at the definition.
If you're driving down the street and the light turns red and you stop, clearly you're going to be there for 70 seconds, right?
Well,
so
not
how
70.
does the 20-second thing...
No, not 70.
The whole loop is
The whole loop is 70. So if you happen to hit the red light on Hamilton just at the time the light turns green on Veronica, you're there for 20 seconds, not 70.
Okay.
Today, the maximum is 20 seconds. We're proposing to make it 23 seconds.
So what happens, so in other words, if you're there for 20 on Hamilton, what does the level of service C mean, that you're there for another 20 seconds?
Let me look at my definitions to make sure I gave you the right numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, I misspoke before. Level of service B is delay between 10 and 20 seconds. Level of service C is between 20 and 35 seconds.
Okay.
So any delay up to 35 seconds would still be considered level of service C.
Okay.
And that's what the intersection will operate at an overall C level of service. And I'm sorry, I may have
It's okay.
disconnected and missed your first part of the question.
But my question is, if it's let's say it's a level of service A, that means when you stop at the intersection with the light, and the light changes, you take off right away.
Right.
Now, when it means with a C,
Right.
is that you pull up to the intersection, the light changes, and you wait 35 seconds?
No, it's not exactly that way. What it is that there are, and I can look at there are probably 12 to 1,500 cars going through the intersection during the peak hour. A lot of those cars, particularly on Hamilton Street, don't even get delayed at all. They approach on a green and they go through on a green. So when I give you that delay for the intersection overall, it's a weighted average of all of the vehicles that are going through the intersection during the peak hour. So it's not one particular car waiting 35 seconds. It's a weighted average. Some people don't wait any time at all if they're on Hamilton.
But some people must wait more than 35
On
seconds.
Veronica, they do, because going back to the 70-second cycle, if you are on Veronica and you hit the stop bar just as it's turning red, you're going to be there for 50 seconds, a minimum 50 seconds, because you have to wait for the cycle to complete itself and for the green to return to Veronica Avenue. The only thing I can tell you is the way the county and the NJDOT, the way they operate their arterial roads, such as Hamilton Street, they purposely favor the main street as far as the traffic signal timing is concerned, because it benefits more people to have them flowing on Hamilton Street.
Yeah.
If you've ever been down at Route 1 in Harrison Street, in, I guess it's in West Windsor, I think they got a three-minute cycle down there. If you're unlucky enough, as I've been many times when I go to Montgomery, to hit that jug handle just when it turns red, you're waiting for 3 minutes to get across Route 1 on Harrison Street. It's just the policy of the NJDOT and the county.
Okay, so now that I understand that for the first time after 10 years, I have one last question. Will the level of service change between pre-construction and after construction?
The sea level of service during the morning peak hour will remain. For the afternoon peak hour, I think we had a B and it will go to a C, but only because we're going from 18 seconds worth of delay to 21.5. So it's an increase of, you got to remember there's a threshold, and sometimes a very high level of service, when you're deep into level of service B and you just cross over
Right.
to C, you can't really tell the difference. It's an additional 3.5 seconds of delay.
Okay, good. That was great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll open to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to ask this witness questions concerning his traffic testimony? Then we'll close, and your third witness.
Mr. Chair, if I could indulge the board, if I could have 3 to 5 minutes as a recess to speak to Mr. Brusilowski before bringing him up as a fact witness before the last professional.
I think we probably can all use 5 minutes. We'll be in recess.
Thank you very much.
I think it's just got the white hair, but.
Not sure what the objectors are. Well, the other gas stations, the objector.
Yeah, I understand that. He said, where's the objector's attorney?
And that guy,
I assume that the Red Sox.
he sold this out without a comment. He was breaking my trust every time I came in there to get gas. This thing is coming. He timed coming out of it,
Wow.
right down to the day.
This is a tricky one, isn't it?
I guess if you're a gas station owner, you don't want it, right?
Oh, they're like the other guys.
Rest that doesn't want one in enough people returning, we can start to get back to business? Before you get to the next witness, I have one question. I'm not sure actually who it involves, and it has to do with the operation of the facility. This is, I assume, a modern gas dispensing facility and so on. Is it going to be set up with the ability to pump gas in the event there's no power?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Felix Brusilowski is the sole member of 1340 Hamilton Street LLC. He is your applicant, and he's here prepared to testify. Mr. Brusilowski is the owner of a private chain of service stations. His own flag is 19 Petroleum. He has about 30, I said 20, he corrected me in the whole, 30 facilities in New Jersey. He also has the rights to distribute Gulf, Citgo, and Union 76 fuel, but his own flag is 19 Petroleum. One of the questions we can talk about is emergency backup power on site. I think it'd be one that he'd be pleased to answer. So if we could, I'll bring him up. As a fact witness, we'll go through the operations testimony addressing that and some of the questions that accumulated in the first hour.
Okay, well, you bring the next witness.
Okay, sir, if you'll raise your right hand, solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
State and spell your last name.
Felix Brusilowski, B-R-U-S-E-L-O, V as in Victor, S-K-Y.
Thank you.
Mr. Brusilowski, if you could please sit. You're the applicant?
Yes, I am.
You're the sole member of 1340 Hamilton Street LLC?
Yes, I am.
And you heard me describe briefly your involvement in the fuel industry, the accurate description?
Very accurate.
How many years?
About 30-some years in the industry. I'm sorry, 30-some years in the industry. I started this business when I was 14 years of age. I'm 48.
So we have, one of the questions, early questions, was about diesel fuel. And I attempted to describe the difference between the 1-inch and the 2-inch nozzle. Could you describe how you encourage diesel sales to cars and small trucks and discourage sales to tractor trailers?
It would be my pleasure. As times go on, we're getting more and more vehicles, regular cars that are on diesel fuel. I'm an owner of one because zero emissions. So what we do at our sites, where we don't want the big trucks in, we just put a dispenser called 3+1. It also has a regular nozzle that will dispense just to cars because it's a very thin nozzle. And it has a much slower flow than it would than fueling up a truck. Usually when the truck pulls in, especially the tractor trailer, they have 2 tanks, one on each side, at 100-some gallons per tank. It will take them forever to get fueled up. They would not even want it. When they pull into a site, because we do operate trucks as well, they look for that high-speed diesel pump because they need to get in and out. Otherwise, it will take them forever. So that's mainly discourages all the truck drivers to come in and fuel up by us.
So would they have to get onto the site to see that there is not a pump that can
Not necessarily.
accommodate them?
If the station is visible from the street, you could tell there's no high-speed diesel pump because it's a standalone, and it looks a lot different than a regular gasoline pump.
So be separately identified. This is a diesel
Correct.
pump.
Different color.
Yeah.
There was a question with regard to, Mr. Chairman, I ask if you could frame your question again for us.
I was just asking if you're going to be able to continue service in the event of power failure.
To answer your question, most likely at this site we will because of the state had issued a fund I forget the amount of money, and they specifically, actually, some of our sites already been identified to have funded by the state of New Jersey to install the gas-operated generators for emergencies. We do put into our newer sites gas-operated backup generators in case there's a power loss.
If this board...
That's natural gas, right?
Yes, sir.
If this board felt that that was an element that was sufficiently important, that it was a condition of approval, would you find that to be an acceptable condition?
Absolutely.
And I would describe your flag as 19, but you also distribute other national brands.
Yes, we do. We're authorized distributors for Gulf Oil, Citgo Petroleum, and Union 76 is the latest brand we just picked up.
So you don't know whether you'll be using your flag or the name brand at
Yes,
this
but I
point?
could assure you it would be, whether it's 19 Petroleum or any other brand, it would be the same pricing.
And one other very important, if we are fortunate enough to move to site plan, and we talk about hours that vehicles bring the fuel, Mr. Brusilowski, do you also own the company that distributes the fuel, and do you have the ability to make commitments to this board as to hours that fuel would be delivered?
Yes, we do.
So we could work that out with you in detail, and the person who's before you has total control over the fuel distribution. Those are my fact questions for Mr. Brusilowski. If anyone has any other questions about his operation, next to his wife and children, it's his favorite time.
Okay, board questions, anything?
The only question that I have is whether the canopy over the gasoline pumps will be high enough to accommodate a tractor trailer if they do either inadvertently pull in without knowing what the diesel pumping situation is or not.
Absolutely, yes, to avoid a catastrophe, yes.
Okay.
While we're talking about the canopy, and because the architect's plans are all part of your submission, and it did not bring him to present, but you'll note that the canopy is unique because it has the colonial features of the building. It's not the traditional canopy. It has the textured roof, and it has a sign band that's designed to be material and color that matches the building.
It's really like putting lipstick on a pig, frankly. There's going to be a canopy no matter what. So I don't really let that
The
one go.
statement's just too accurate to have a comeback.
Right. What's the speed of the diesel, of the flow of the diesel fuel on the slow speed pumps?
I would say 20-some gallons per minute.
That sounds like high speed.
Versus 40 to 60 gallons.
Okay, so it's 20, how many?
It'd be the same amount as a regular car. So it takes about a few minutes to fuel up a regular
Yeah.
vehicle, and that would be the same thing with the diesel.
So,
It has the same pump.
okay, all right.
The LLC
All right.
owns that property, free and clear?
Mr. Brusilowski's company owns that property free and clear. Yes, Mr. Rosenthal.
Any other questions?
Both properties. They were acquired and merged.
Okay, we'll open again to the public. Is there anyone who would like to ask this witness questions? All right, then we'll close.
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask
Oh.
one question. The question that came up before about the hours of operation, and it was pointed out before about the previous approval, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Do you have a position on that?
I have two responses. One, we're very grateful that that information is shared with us. 10 o'clock is a very hard hour to close. If it is the condition that's imposed, we live with it. I would respectfully ask if your applicant is fully informed that restrictive hours are going to be part of the discussion. But if we could postpone that until the site plan, knowing that we're going to have a full discussion on it. The hour, the witching hour that we believe is necessary to be competitive and to serve what we believe is the community is 11. But I don't want to just say, I want 11. I want to do further research. I want to know what the competition is providing in the area before I engage in a discussion. I understand your position fully.
Yeah, well, it really has nothing to do with the competition in the area. Has to do with standards we set up for other commercial enterprises that are near residential areas on Elizabeth Avenue. And
Understood.
If we grant you a later time, then we have to probably grant them.
Not that different.
Yeah. I would only ask, if we get to the point where we've earned an approval, I'd ask if we could postpone the hours of operation to a later hearing, but we're
We don't
informed.
have a final plan, so there's nothing to postpone. But we can tell you, or I can tell you, and I heard another board member tell you, that you'll have trouble getting this approved if you're open late at night.
Understood. So, Mr. Hill, that's the applicant's response.
When you
just had
think
a-
of that, if we get to the next level on that, is there a priority in terms of which is better, being open earlier or later? I would think that I might want to be open at 5 in the morning, not saying that's what you're asking for, and 11 at night.
Thomas, this question comes up. I've had the privilege of doing most of those 30 facilities, and it comes up. And each time, we try to come up with a well-reasoned answer. When we're out on an interstate, there are certain hours that are critical. When we're in a downtown urban area, different hours are critical. We're being candid. We haven't done the investigation as to what hours are critical, and clearly it's going to be a discussion point. We'd like to come completely prepared to engage in that discussion.
Okay.
But
Anything else for this?
Just a question about the stores. There's the mini mart. And I assume, well, maybe you haven't. Is this a first for you, or have you done this before?
Oh, we have multiple
Yeah.
stores.
Yeah, and with 6 stores next to the mini mart, what kind of stores go in there?
We don't know.
I mean, elsewhere, and your other
Pizzeria.
pizzerias.
Yeah, mom and pop.
And
yeah.
Advanced Auto Parts is a good companion. That type of a business is a very good companion.
Auto parts. Yeah.
Auto parts stores, yeah.
Okay.
It's a small retail building. They're not.
Yeah, they're only 1,700
Not a lot to.
square
Well,
feet.
I mean, 10,000 square feet, I mean, it could be one user,
Yeah.
or you
Could
could
be
break
one,
it up
yeah.
into 6. I think the site plan, or the architecturals have it broken up into 6, much smaller. That's in the neighborhood of, that's less than 2,000 square foot apiece.
Auto supply stores between 4,000 and 6,000 square feet.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else?
Then, Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you, Mr. Brusilowski.
Thank you.
We have Allison Coffin, our professional planner. Allison was the planner who presented the original application. I'd ask if she could be sworn, and we'll take a few moments to share her credentials with you.
Okay, solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, she was the original planner. She didn't lose her license, is that
Nope.
correct?
No,
Okay, then we can move forward.
thank you.
Thank you.
So if you could take a few moments to share with us the nature of the investigation that you do to prepare to present this type of an application. Tell us exactly what you did to prepare for this one, and then in a narrative fashion, if you could take us through the positive and negative and master plan elements of the proofs.
Sure. To prepare for tonight, I looked at the application, I visited the site and the surrounding areas. I looked at the zoning ordinance and the master plan and went through the professionals' reports, as well as sitting here tonight listening to the testimony that the board's already heard. What we have here is a property that's just under 3 acres. It's a corner lot located at a signalized intersection of Hamilton Street and Veronica Avenue. The property is currently occupied by 2 vacant single-family dwellings, and the board has previously granted use variance approval for this site to permit the development of the property with 20,000 square feet of retail and a 3,000 and change square foot bank with a drive-through. Now, the applicant is proposing to modify those approved plans by reducing that retail space from 20,000 to 10,000 square feet, removing the bank, and replacing it with a gasoline station and convenience store use. The site's located in an area of mixed uses. There are a variety of commercial uses, including a funeral parlor and a gas station with a repair garage fronting Hamilton Street on the same side as the subject site. There's also some industrial uses to the west. And the area across Hamilton Street to the east is developed with a vibrant, medium-density, single-family community. The subject site is located within the M2 zone, and this district is designated for manufacturing and industrial operations on minimum 2-acre lots. The permitted uses in this zone include manufacturing, fabrication, and assembly uses, biological, chemical, dental, electronic, pharmaceutical, and general laboratories, industrial parks, warehouses, general office buildings, administrative and dispatch services for taxi and limo services, indoor recreational uses, extended stay hotels, child care centers, and personal storage and mini warehouse uses. Nowhere in that list is retail uses and a gasoline station with convenience store, so a use variance is required for the applicant's request to develop the site with those uses. Looking at the bulk standards, the application complies substantially with those in terms of lot area, frontage, front yard setback, rear yard setback, side yard setback, height, building coverage. We're well below that. The 50% is the maximum permitted, and the applicant's proposing 11.4%. FAR, it's 0.5, and the applicant's at 0.11. There is a slight variance for impervious coverage, where 65% is the maximum, and the applicant's proposing 69.7, but this is less than what was previously approved. There are a couple of other variances that are required with this plan. The side yard setback for the refuge structure, the number of signs and sign area and setback, which are all consistent with the prior approvals, the parking area setback, the number of driveways, and the driveway width that's proposed. So with all that as background, it's my opinion that there are special reasons that exist for the granting of the requested variance, and the variance can be granted without detriment to the health, safety, and general welfare of the public. Now, when we're looking at a D1 variance, which is required in this site to replace that bank with a gasoline station convenience store, as well as the retail that was previously approved, we're looking for special reasons, the positive criteria that support the variance.
And I think this is really all about the gas station.
Yes, it is.
Right. So why don't we just kind of, instead of kind of like talking about the retail, let's talk about why is there a special reason to put a gas station here?
Sure. When we're looking at special reasons, the courts have given us some background as to what that means. There are 3 types of special reasons recognized under case law. We have inherently beneficial uses, which I don't think applies to the gasoline station. There's undue hardship, which doesn't apply in this situation. And then there's particular suitability. And that's the particular suitability of the site for the use. Now, this is generally the primary reason that's given for approving a use variance, and it's not defined within the municipal land use law. Now, planners, applicants, boards, and lawyers, we've all been struggling with this term, particular suitability, for years to fully identify what exactly that means. And there's a lot of case law trying to pin down what particular suitability is, from the original enhanced burden of proof concept in the Medici case to the most recent Supreme Court case. It's very recent. It's Larry Price versus Himeji LLC and Union City Zoning Board of Adjustment. Now, this case provided us with some of the clearest guidance on what particular suitability is. And in that case, basically what the court found is that when we're assessing particular suitability for a site for a given use, it's necessary to look at both the need for that use in that location and the specific qualities of this site which make it suitable for this use. And it's my opinion that there is a need for this use in this area to serve the surrounding community. The gasoline station and convenience store, as well as the neighborhood scale retail center, there's not that much available in the immediate area. A few other services similar to this in the immediate area. There's only one other gasoline station within a mile of the site, and that's located just to the east on Hamilton. But this station is a different use. It's a gasoline station with a repair garage associated with it rather than a convenience store. Now, gasoline station with a convenience store, such as what's proposed on this site, is a distinctly different use. It has different traffic patterns, and it's been determined by the courts to be a separate use from a gasoline service station with a repair garage associated with it. serves the community in a different way. There are no other retail services available within a mile of this area to serve the needs of the local residents or the people working within the area. Now, the board has previously found that providing for neighborhood-scale commercial uses on this site serves a public need for such services for the nearby residents, as well as for the people working in the industrial area along Veronica Avenue. It's my opinion that the proposed changes to this site, by replacing the bank with the gasoline station and the convenience store, will better serve that need. Now, this site is particularly suited to that proposed use, as clarified by the Price decision's definition of particular suitability. The nature of the proposed use is that it's best located along a heavily traveled roadway to serve the traffic that's already using those routes, and this site is located on a heavily traveled roadway, Hamilton Avenue, which serves as a main route for the local residents. Furthermore, the property is distinct from all the others fronting on Hamilton Avenue, in that it's located right at that signalized intersection with Veronica Avenue, and this is a significant employment center. The uses that are proposed can...
What is a particular employment center?
The Veronica Avenue. You've got all those
Oh,
industrial
okay, all
users
right,
that
all
come
right,
out
I
to
get it.
Hamilton there. So the gasoline station, convenience store, and the retail that's proposed will serve not only those local residents that are already traveling on Hamilton, but also the employees that work on Veronica Avenue. Lastly, the site is located at the crossroads between the M2 Industrial District to the west, with all of its industrial uses, and the residentially zoned R20 developed area across Hamilton Avenue to the east. Now, the use of this site for what's proposed, with the attractive architecture, the more than ample landscaping, provides an appropriate transition and a buffer between the residential community and the industrial area. It's my opinion that there would be no detriment that would result from the granting of the variances on the neighboring properties or the surrounding area. The application would not result in any detriment to the surrounding area. In this instance, we're placing a neighborhood-scale commercial development on the boundary between a residential area and an industrial development, and the applicant is providing for an appropriate transition between those two zones. The site is designed to be visually attractive, using both suitable architecture and landscaping to ensure that the development does not negatively impact the visual character of the area, especially fronting Hamilton Avenue and the residential neighbors across the street. Now, the impact of some of the permitted uses on the adjacent residential area, especially those manufacturing uses, would be more significant than the proposed uses, especially in terms of traffic, noise, odors, and aesthetics. The proposed uses would support the industrial community along Veronica Avenue and have no negative impact on those. Now, there are a couple of variances that are required for the plan that's proposed, and it's my opinion that they are necessary to support the use, and therefore would be subsumed within the use variance request, and that they would result in themselves no detrimental impact. First, we have that impervious coverage, which is slightly more than what's proposed. It's my opinion that that could be considered a de minimis variance in nature. It's also less than what was previously approved. But the site can and will accommodate the stormwater drainage despite the variance request. And such coverage in this instance is necessary to provide that adequate and safe on-site circulation and parking. The signage that's proposed requires a couple of variances, but this is necessary for adequate site identification from both adjacent roadways, and it's also consistent with what was previously approved on the site. The side yard setback to the refuse structure is appropriate for the site, and that refuse structure is located adjacent to other industrial users, so there'll be no impact on them from having that structure located in the side yard. The parking and circulation variances, the parking within the front yard, the number of driveways, and the driveway width are all necessary and appropriate to provide adequate on-site circulation and parking. Now, the last test for the variances that are requested is whether or not there'd be a significant impact on the zone plan, the master plan and zoning ordinance, as a result of the variances requested. It's my opinion that this lot is uniquely situated at the significant signalized intersection at the crossroads between two incompatible land use types, the industrial zone and the residential zone. The proposed use provides for an appropriate transition between the single-family residential area to the east and the light industrial development to the west, thereby preventing a conflict between these two incompatible land use categories. And the development also advances several specific goals of the master plan, including to encourage commercial and industrial development in areas with access to major regional highways and in established areas, to concentrate commercial developments into nodes or districts in areas where residential densities can support commercial activities, to limit commercial activities in villages to neighborhood commercial uses, those which serve the adjacent residential community, and to support the redevelopment of declining areas within the township. And this property clearly is in need of some redevelopment. And for those reasons, it's my opinion that there are special reasons that exist in support of the variances requested tonight, that they would result in no detriment to the general welfare of the public, nor would they result in any substantial impairment to the master plan or the zoning ordinance.
Okay, any questions?
Tell me again about the difference between the gas stations and why you think that this is important in view of how close is the other gas station?
I think I don't have the exact measurement, it's a lot over.
Quarter mile?
Quarter mile.
Less than a quarter mile.
And we need 2 gas stations? This is the kind of things that people always say to us. Do you need 2 gas stations on this street?
If need from a legal perspective, it's not whether we have 1 or 2 or 3, it's whether the service that's being provided is needed by the community in which it is located.
Right, that's the same thing, though.
No,
How is that different?
well, because we don't say, there's Burger King, McDonald's, you're not allowed to be anywhere near this piece. There's Burger King, McDonald's, KFC, you got to be in, there's lunch already here. It doesn't work that way. You identify the needs of the community. The needs, and here, Allison has described, we have a residential community that has needs, and clearly convenience and gas is a need that they have, and we have a manufacturing industrial, and it just so happens they have an overlapping need. So the fact that we have competition, or we would be competition, is not any way to be considered. It's whether the community's needs are, whether what we're providing is something that's needed by the community. And we don't count and say, we already satisfied that, because we're America, and we like competition.
Okay, now we're going to take just a short break because I'm going to ask my attorney whether or not, how he feels about that particular explanation, whether that's correct or not. Because I think that's pretty important.
Well, I think it's somewhere in the middle there, Bob. I don't feel that they need to show that there's a need in the community. I don't think that's an essential element of a use variance anymore. It's simply positive criteria, the presence of the positive criteria, the site suitability, the special reasons, the purposes of zoning, and the absence of the negative criteria. And whether or not they've put in sufficient proofs to show that through conditions or otherwise, that those negatives can essentially be nullified. When you get down to the need, that's actually, I think, and I think the case law puts it as fairly archaic element of a use variance application. Keep in mind what you've approved there already, the deviations that have already been made, and the reasoning that went into those deviations. Listen to the testimony that you've heard, the planning testimony as to whether or not that the proofs have been met, whether or not it's a traffic generator or it's just picking up people that are already there. I wouldn't really focus in honestly on the term need as one of their required proofs. I heard what counsel said. It was fairly creative. I don't necessarily agree with his verbiage as to community need versus area or competition need. Really, it's whether or not it fits on the property and whether or not it can fit there, reconcile with the master plan and the absence of negatives.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
If we would have still had the bank instead of the gas station, would you have given us the same opinion that you did with the gas station?
No, I did testify on the original application, and I can tell you I did not just copy and paste the same report. I changed it quite a bit. I do think that a bank serves the local area, if you're going to look at a nearby community, to a lesser extent that a gas station would, because you have much more brand loyalty when it comes to a bank. So the bank that comes in, if those people who live nearby use that bank, that's, convenient for them. But if they already have their banking services through a completely different bank, then that bank doesn't benefit them. Whereas gasoline, it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to have that brand loyalty to use that gas station.
I take issue with that explanation, because if a new bank opens and it's closer to your home, and they're offering you a better deal, a lot of people, we've had a lot of new banks open in this area. And that's,
Yes, some people will change.
that's an explanation that serves your own purpose for your own case. That's not necessarily so.
I will tell you that Mr. Brusilowski owns the property, bought the property, including the additional lands, some 6 or 7 years ago, has had the approval. We have been marketing this for all those years, and if we had a bank, we'd have built it. It just didn't come.
I just want to clarify something. In the master plan some time ago, there was on service stations, gas stations, with the service element of it, there was a requirement for them to be a mile apart. And I don't know how, can anybody tell me about that? Mark?
Not constitutional, so.
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the, I'm not an attorney, so I can't comment on that, but that's my understanding, that we do have a provision where they are permitted by conditional use. We do have a separation requirement. It's my understanding that those have not been supported when they were challenged in the courts.
And also, this is.
Oh, have they been challenged, or?
Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know.
And this isn't a service station. This is not.
No, I understand the distinction of that. So, I mean, but I'm curious because, you're talking about impact on the zone plan or the plan, the master plan. And that, if that's in the master plan, then the master plan really needs to get brought up to date or something.
Yeah, I didn't see that in the master plan, but it may be in there.
It's in the zoning ordinance. It's one of the conditional use standards for service stations.
And
But this is not a service
This is
station.
This isn't a
It's
service.
technically not a service
So
station.
it's not relevant.
Well, no, I mean, well, whether it's relevant or not, the definition of service station in our ordinance is gas station with the auto, the service, the tire change, et cetera. That's the definition. But it is,
It's not applicable to
yeah,
this.
the service station does include,
Yes.
the service station does include a gas element to it. But this is not a conditional use application. This is a use variance
and
for a slightly different use.
Judge Healy, who he sits in New Brunswick, has
No relation.
has on a number of occasions in his decisions identified that gas with convenience is one of the new uses. It's not two uses. Gas with convenience is one of the new uses.
Okay, so then that would not be then a detriment to the master plan.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just a few, Mr. Chairman. Just a few clarifications or additions to the testimony. Just in terms of the signage, the sign area, and Ms. Coffin wouldn't have known this, but what the signage, you need the variance, I think it's 144 square feet, and the additional square footage, the 44, is the ornamental element of it, and the actual sign display area is 100 square feet. And that's what, and the board has consistently granted those variances where basically you've never granted a variance when they wanted a larger display. Planning board did for one application, but this board in the last 8 years has not granted when they wanted a 200 square foot display. But you have granted variances like this when the actual additional sign area is the ornamental elements, the base, et cetera. In terms of the impervious, I think it is important to note that while the M2 zone has an impervious surface limitation of 65%, Where we do permit retail in the MB and the R and the GB zones, those impervious surface requirements are 70 and 80% respectively. So this is consistent in terms of the impervious surface with other retail developments in town. And also in terms of the parking lot setback, that's actually unique to the M2 zone, where it's for warehouses, et cetera. We don't have a parking lot setback in our NB or GB zones. So to the degree they have setbacks of 32 feet and 42 feet, they're in excess, or they significantly exceed what we require in our retail zones. The effect of our commercial design standards, however, we have required significant, landscape treatments in the front. And my opinion would be that this is consistent with that, with some details to be worked out during site plan. I do have one question. The sign setback variances, the one that's on the corner is 10, and then the gas station sign on Veronica is 12, where 20 is required. Is there a hardship involved in complying, or is that a C2 better design? But what's the justification for those setback
I
Mm-hmm.
variances?
think that would be a C2 better design because it allows for the signs to be out in front of the landscaping without, if we move them back, we'd also have to lower the landscaping around the signs. And it's better to have that additional landscaping around the frontage of the property than to have the signs set back another 10 feet.
And if I might, we also, the one on Veronica is created because of the voluntary giving of additional lands for widening Veronica as requested by the county.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, what about the scale? I keep thinking about this and thinking about that particular area, and it seems like this is going to be like the Emerald City, as compared to everything else around it. It seems like it's going to be a big operation. Is there anything nearby that's like this?
The size of the property is a result of us buying the piece that was suggested.
I get that.
And doing the demolition. We were also asked to demolish the structures. So the size of the property that we bring before you is really by our mutual design from a few years ago. And to where we previously had a 23,600 square foot retail facility, you now have 14,000 or 9,000 less. Where you previously had a bank, you have a canopy. So I'd say it's, I'm not going to say it's less, but it's not more than what we presented to you after we acquired the additional land.
I think it boils down to the intensity of the use. Like I said, if you think about scale, one thing you have to remember is that this is the M2 zone. They could have warehouses, office buildings up to 50 feet in height with parking surrounding it. So in terms of scale of development, I would argue that the actual scale in terms of the square footage, the amount of coverage is less intense in terms of scale than what the zone actually requires. So I think it boils down to, again, as you said, Mr. Shepherd, really the gas station and the intensity of the site activity on the site, a lot of which kind of boils down to traffic, frankly. It's different than if it's an office use, you're going to have, you're usually going to have the rush hour. That's going to coincide with the peak. So you would have impacts with that, but this is kind of an all-day thing. So I think you need to consider, in my opinion, I think you really need to consider the most important things are the site circulation issues that the site engineer discussed and the traffic input that the traffic engineer gave you in terms of what the impact would be on the surrounding roadway network.
Good, thank you, Mr. Healy. That's very helpful.
I have one more. There's one thing missing for me, and that is the accident records at the corner. We used to have a traffic safety person who was on our police department would give us reports, and they would run down what kinds of accidents happen in different places, so that we'd have a particular insight into what's working, what's not working. And in this case, we don't have that. And with the new configuration out there, and with that left-hand turn into the driveway off of Hamilton Street, I guess, are we going to get this back for when we, in other words, if we give the use variance, we're going to get it back for the site plan?
Yes.
Go back there with the site plan.
Yeah, and
You're doing the full site plan, that's correct.
and we're not quite through with the access on the county road? I mean, the Veronica's done as far as, that's our road.
The general locations of the would be as shown. If you wanted to work out particular.
Yeah, with the left-hand turn.
Absolutely. That would be a site plan detail that we would work out with your staff and this board at site plan.
Yeah.
Well, if we're talking about Hamilton Street, ultimately, it's the county that's going to make the decision. So,
It'll be
It's both of you.
but it's both, but I
go
think
back and-
if the board has a concern about the left turn into the site from Hamilton Street, perhaps, if you're inclined to approve this, you may condition upon the applicant revisiting this with the county and maybe you want to get an official position from the county on that issue, and have them inform you at the time of site plan on their position on that.
Yeah, I could tell you, we've had several meetings with the applicant, with the county separately on this issue, and if the board has a specific concern, the applicant has shown very much that they're willing to sit down and discuss anything with us and the county. So whatever that concern may be, you can give them direction, and in the last year, everything we've asked them to do and discuss with the various entities they've done, so I would feel comfortable they'd be willing to do that.
And if there were conditions imposed jointly by the town and the county, we'll find a way to make them work. The controlled traffic signal, that newly improved widened controlled traffic signal intersection is what makes the site so viable.
Yeah, it does, works a lot better than it was.
It makes the site very viable.
Anything else?
No, but I have a couple of questions again for our attorney.
Okay.
We're going to make a motion. Now, they've asked that we hold in abeyance the issue of hours of operation. They've also asked for a number of variances, bulk variances. I guess, we had a couple of other things that we talked about. We talked about natural gas generation in case of electricity, and we talked about hours of operation and the presence of only slower speed volume pumps, so that we don't end up having this as a truck stop, an AM Best truck stop, right. So if we include those in here now, can they come back at the site plan and say, we think that you want to think about this a little bit more? Can we change what we say when they come back with the site plan?
Need amended use variance.
Wait, I'm asking my lawyer.
Okay. Just procedurally, just so you know, you still have to open it to the public before you vote.
Oh, yeah,
discuss.
okay.
Okay, so, but, I was actually just writing it down, because I was thinking in my mind regarding the hours of operation and tabling that for the site plan. And I'm obviously looking at it from the board's perspective, making sure that we don't lose out
Right.
in that regard. And no disrespect, but, if they abandon this, somebody else takes the use and comes back. So if I can't say I recommend that, but if you were to do that, and I was going to say this on the record, I will put in the resolution that hours of operation would be set at site plan with the clear understanding that in granting, if I'm not presuming, but if you're granting it, obviously, it's one of those conditions I spoke of earlier that's allowing you to do that in order to throttle back on the negatives. It's one of those conditions that you're making it fit. That's your job.
Yeah.
And so if that is a factor, I got to make clear in the resolution that that was a factor in doing it, so I would say something to the effect with the clear understanding of the applicant and any other person or entity standing in their shoes, that the board is not inclined, would not be inclined to go into late-night operations of this thing. And I would mention the prior approvals and the prior hours as in that regard.
Okay.
Your second question, or second part of that question, was with regards to the pumps and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I put that in the resolution now. I wouldn't even.
All right. Good.
You guys can kick around whether or not you want to table the hours or not. But I wanted to make clear to them that I was going to put that in the resolution regardless, that it was still going to be fairly locked down.
I can help you go further. The reason that I'm asking that it be postponed is I want to be more informed before I engage in a dialogue with you. Such things as what all of the other service stations' hours of operation are in the general community is something that I think that we should know before we start talking about it with you. I'd be willing to say that the applicant understands that there will be restrictive hours, and absent the applicant and the board reaching an accord, the use variance fails. Because it's our goal.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd come back to have to
We can have
address
it fail, so no one can step into my shoes and come in here and try to argue. If they step into my shoes and they can't make this board happy, it failed. And
Okay, that sounds good.
so I'm back with you. The hours of operation, I want to be informed and have an informed dialogue with you. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, then we're ready to
Public, I guess, right?
open to the public. If there's anyone who has a statement to make, a comment,
Or questions.
this is the time.
Question.
Questions are welcome. Anything, anybody? Come on up to the podium.
Now you're going to need a mic up there.
We will need your name and address, and then you'll have to be sworn in. You can go from there if the mic works, that's
Whatever you
fine.
like. Okay, my name's Al Johansson. I'm a lawyer. I represent the owner of the Delta Station, which is very close by to this property. And,
You can have a seat if you wish.
have a seat, okay. I note that the,
Keep the mic up.
There you go.
closer, like
Yes,
that?
that's
Okay,
good.
thank you. I note that the ordinance that we're looking at here, the zoning ordinance, requires a separation of gas stations. And who knows what the founding fathers thought about that, but I think they wanted to avoid clusters. And it looks like what we're doing here is creating a cluster. That is a gas station which is 50 feet from another gas station. Does that really make sense? Especially when variances are required, and variances can be either granted or denied.
How far is this proposed gas station from your client's gas station?
Maybe 100 feet, 50 feet, something like that.
Put the mic, please.
100 feet would be my guess. I looked at the
Yeah, well,
plan.
it's a little more than 50. It's a few sites away, but it's within a few hundred feet. I'm hearing somebody in the audience say 600
It's
feet.
at least 3 properties and an
Well,
intersection.
and the question is, does it violate the ordinance?
It does not, because the provision in our ordinance is not a provision that's legally defensible according to our
Whether it is
township
or it,
attorney.
I mean, he's raising the issue, so whether it is or it isn't, I'm just wondering whether or not,
Which is why you notice it's not in my report as a variance, because I've been advised by our township attorney that it is something that needs to be changed and it is not legally defensible, so as.
we're not even addressing it.
Right, as I think as the applicant attorney pointed out, that was his opinion, and that was the opinion that I got from our township attorney, which is why I didn't put it in my report.
And it's also technically a different use.
Yeah.
Technically. I mean, technically, the use that's permitted in our ordinance is a service station, which is defined as a facility with gas and services, tire changes, oil changes. That's what a service station is in our ordinance. That's not what this is. It's a technical distinction, but it is a different use. And again, that's one of the reasons why they're here for a D1 use variance, as opposed to a D3 conditional use variance.
Is your client's station now that changed name or ownership, is that going to remain as a service station, or is that going to have a mini mart eventually too?
No, service station, additional service station, pumping gas.
You need to put the mic
Yeah.
by.
Both of you need
Oh,
to
sorry
get
about that.
close to the mic.
The only reason I asked that, I've seen a lot of station conversions after they changed the ownership.
Yeah, I represent the new owner of that station, and he was kind of surprised by all this. Didn't really know that this was going on. But he does plan to have a traditional gas station with repairs and not a lot of foods and other stuff.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're still speaking. Whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
I guess one kind of minor comment, there was a concern about avoiding making it into a truck stop, and the focus was on the quantity of, the speed of pumping of the diesel fuel. My understanding is that another criteria is the amount of storage of diesel fuel. If the storage is not that large, you don't get these huge trucks coming in, and it won't become a truck stop. Just a comment.
Respond?
That could be in the form of a question.
Sure. No, as we come forward with the final design, you'll see that we have the traditional tanks that are associated with the service station and not the mega tanks that are associated with the truck station. So when we come forward, if we come forward with a site plan, the commitment will be to have the smaller tanks that are commensurate with the retail sales of gas and diesel to small vehicles. It's a very good point.
Okay, anything? Okay, anything else?
That'll do for now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak or ask a question? Either.
Well, excuse
Mike
me,
is up
Ms.
here. Come on up here.
Mr.
Is this,
Johansson?
Is this his client?
I'm going to find out. Okay, so if he's your client, you understand that you're speaking for him, so he's not going to speak.
Looks like he'd like to speak, but okay.
Well, I mean, you know,
Yes, I understand.
you're certainly welcome to have him tell you whatever he wants to speak, but generally, if he's represented, you speak for him. He could call them as a witness if he wants. At least not really, I don't want to.
May I correct what I said? He may want to introduce the convenience store aspect to that property at some point in the future.
Well, can I ask you a question? If maybe you know this, maybe you don't. I know it was a Sunoco. Is it not a Sunoco?
No, it's now, what, Delta.
Delta, okay, so just so, point of reference. All right, so this Delta, do you know, or the Sunoco before, how it came into existence? Did it come in via variance? Is it in the same zone as this application? In other words, how did that use come into effect, do you know?
Oh, it's in the same zone.
Yeah, it's in the M2 zone. I don't know if it was a use, I mean, it's been there a while.
It's been there a long
So
time.
my guess is it could have,
Right.
it could have been a pre-existing non-conforming use. It could have been by use variance. If his client wants to do a convenience store, he would have to go through the same process as this applicant. He would need a use variance and he'd need site plan approval.
Right, I
And we
think his
did give
concern was
them
just that I
a,
misspoke.
It's okay.
they did come in to expand their bays in the back, the number of bays that they could repair vehicles, and they got a variance for
You can
that.
see the expansion on the photo.
It's here.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
that site is a good deal smaller, so convenience store and the right amount of parking and all that, but that has to be worked out if an application was made.
They also came in to add a diesel pump, a standalone diesel pump,
That's right.
and we approved that.
Okay, that's good for another time. Are there any other questions or statements or comments concerning the application? Thanks for your assistance on that.
Thank you.
Okay, then we will close to the public. You have anything to,
Oh, just very briefly, representing Felix Brusilowski here in this community for the last 7.5 years has been a pleasure for me, and I appreciate very much Mr. Baumann and Mr. Hill have shared with you the cooperation that this applicant brings as he presents his application to you. That cooperation is shown in the quality of the architecture, the commitment to the landscaping, the signage, and remembering each and every piece of guidance that came either from a professional or from a board member. We haven't argued with any of it. We're here because the approval that you granted to us, that we asked of you, that we thought was the right use, we learned over the last 6 years was not, and it's not viable. We're here with a use that we believe is viable and, as Allison pointed out, is supported by sufficient planning arguments, positive and negative criteria are fully addressed. With the understanding that we make a commitment to continue working with your staff and with this board to come up with a final product that is what you want to see there. And with the understanding that the hours of operation, we understand the restriction would be for purposes of protecting the residential community in which we would become a member. And we would ask that you consider this application with the conditions that are in place before you favorable to just the use variance.
Just a quick thing, Mr. Chairman. In terms of staff reports, there were a number of site plan-related comments in my report. There was a comment in the, well, obviously, we know you need to work out site plan issues with engineering. John House had a comment about moving the dumpster away from the building. I'm assuming you're okay with working all those out during site plan and having that as a condition in this approval?
Every one of those conditions we worked out.
All right, thank you.
I had one, the report from the Environmental Commission, I think the impervious coverage is 67 and the requirement is 65, is that?
It is, and as Mr. Healy pointed out, for the retail facilities, your ordinance has a criteria for between 70 and 80, and when we were here the last time, we were over 70. We're going down.
Yeah.
We're going down.
So-
Some of that is because of giving up the land.
I got it. Okay, that's good, thank you.
okay, any board comments or questions or motions?
Yeah, why not? I got the wrong piece of paper, hold on. I move that we grant 1340 Hamilton Street for property located at 1340 Hamilton Street, Somerset, the following variances. A D1 use variance to allow the construction of a gasoline dispensing store combined with a convenience store, as well as additional retail space. In addition, a variance for freestanding, 3 freestanding signs, and another variance for a freestanding sign in excess of 100 square feet, a setback variance for the freestanding signs from 10 feet to, instead of the 20 feet required, a freestanding sign setback for the Veronica sign number 2 of 12 feet instead of the 20 feet required, an impervious coverage variance to allow for coverage of 69.7% of the property, a parking lot setback variance to allow for a 32.8 foot setback against Hamilton and a 42 setback against Veronica instead of the 50 feet minimum, and the side yard setback requirement for the refuse structure of approximately 5 feet by 15 feet instead of the 20 feet reviewed, subject to the following restrictions. Number one, that the service station include a natural gas generator that will allow the service station, the gas pumping operation within the property to be used in times of loss of electrical power, and that's the only requirement that I have here, except that we are going to hold in abeyance. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. And that the fuel pumps, particularly for the diesel fuel, will only dispense fuel at the lower volume that is typically used on automobiles, and that the hours of operation issue will be held in abeyance until the site plan hearing. But if there is no agreement with regard to the hours of operation at the time of the site plan hearing, then the use variance will fail.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, there's actually two more variances. They're actually really site plan related, but one is the driveway width. This is in Vince's report. The driveway width is 20 foot is the minimum, and that one-way in is 18, so that's technically a variance.
Okay, we can add that.
And also that one also creates access is provided by more than two driveways, three are proposed. So again, that third one-way in is the third driveway.
Well, as amended, I second.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay.
Ms. Grauman?
Yes.
Mr. McCracken?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Reese?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is a motion to close?
Yes.
Second.
Okay.